The story begins with a young fellow named John requesting his friend Slow to prepare to join their other friends at the beach to play basketball and enjoy themselves. After they had finished playing, they all agreed to go back home, but John and Slow, who opted to hang out together for some time. Slow instructs them to cross over to the opposite side of the river to view the rich homes and rich people living there, as John and Slow live in a poor neighborhood. The problem is that they do not know how to cross the river. Slow and John see an individual leave a boat on the beach where they are standing and decide to steal the boat in order to reach the other bank of the river. Slow and John look at the palaces, mansions, and the luxury of the wealthy and hope one day they will live like that. Slow and John see some young people diving into the water, but one of them accidentally steps on a little girl who starts drowning. John runs into the water to save the girl as Slow pulls the boat to help pull her out. The girl's name is Patricia. Patricia is taken back by Slow and John to Frank, her dad, who is very grateful for saving his daughter. Frank invites John and Slow over to his home so John can dry himself. When they finally reach the house, Frank turns out to be extremely wealthy and owns an exquisite mansion. Frank drops Patricia in her room and leaves John waiting for his return. To John's surprise, he sees a beautiful girl named Elisabeth, who is Frank's elder daughter, looking shocked to see John and Slow in his father's house. Frank informs her about what happened. Frank gets John dry clothes and insists on returning him and Slow home. The next day, Elisabeth and her father, Frank, welcome their grandmother who has come to spend a few days with them. Elisabeth seems to still be melancholy for no known reason. During breakfast, the grandmother annoys Elisabeth by asking which university she would be joining and requiring her to join a specific university. But Frank arrives and informs his mother that he would like Elisabeth to decide on the subject she prefers. He also informs them that he has already made up his mind to sell the mansion. Elisabeth is also on her father's side, but the grandmother strongly objects and argues with them, believing that the problem can be solved through the hiring of someone to take care of the house. Meanwhile, John is talking to his mother and stepfather, where his stepfather inquires about which university he is heading. John tells his stepfather that he had applied to a drama school, but his stepfather mocks him and his dream. His mother, however, praises him, telling him that he is talented in theater and that the decision to move to study at the university was very appropriate. John looks disturbed at his stepfather's remarks. John decides to visit his friends and discovers that they are going to steal from Frank's house, as indicated by Slow, who had seen Frank's wealth when they visited him after having rescued Patricia. John, however, does not agree and informs them that Frank was kind to them and does not deserve this. Slow responds by saying that all rich people are the same. John cannot thwart them and is forced to join them even though he does not agree. On arriving at Frank's house, Slow offers John the opportunity to stay outside and keep watch if he does not want to participate in the robbery. John refuses and goes into Frank's house with them. They begin to rob jewelry and other valuables. John enters Elisabeth's bedroom and looks about her belongings and photographs, but Slow halts him, waving a gun he found in Frank's office. John asks Slow to return the gun, but Slow does not, and there is an argument. Frank and his daughters return at that moment, and he notices the lights on. Frank drops off his daughters in the vehicle and enters to see what is happening. John and his friends realize that Frank has arrived and hastily leave the premises without being detected. Frank realizes that there has been a robbery, and the gun is gone and calls the police to report the crime. The next morning, John receives a reply from the university he had applied to and learns that he is accepted. Days pass, and John is getting ready for his first day at university. He's thrilled and amazed by the environment. When he enters the classroom, he is surprised to find Elisabeth. He is shocked, nervous, and exhilarated at once. John addresses Elisabeth after school, reminding her that he is the one who saved her sister from drowning. John notices Elisabeth is somber, but does not ask her why. He soon meets with another student who tells him that he has known Elisabeth since a long time back, and that Elisabeth's mother passed away a few months ago, and that is why Elisabeth is sad and depressed. John comes home with thoughts of Elisabeth to the point of looking for her on social media. It seems Elisabeth is also in search of John on social media and tells her father and sister that John is with her at university. Patricia is excited and wants Elisabeth to invite John to her birthday party. Back to John, he talks with his stepfather, who provides him with money whenever he needs it, instead of getting into trouble with his stealing friends. John is furious with him and responds curtly. The next day, Elisabeth is upset, and the professor scolds her in public. She leaves class, but John follows her in a bid to calm her down and comfort her about the death of her mother. Elizabeth, however, gets angry with him for no reason. John makes amends with Elizabeth the following day, and she forgives him and invites him to her sister's birthday party. John says yes and gives Elizabeth his phone number so she can call him. John returns home and tries to argue with his stepfather, who accuses him of being a dependent. John's friend intervenes and scares his stepfather with the stolen gun from Frank's house, and then helps John, who expresses gratitude. John visits Patricia's birthday party the next day, wishes her well, and meets Elizabeth, who asks him to her room so they can sit together in peace and away from noise. Elizabeth appears to be interested in John, and they plan to go out the following day. John bids goodbye to Elizabeth and heads back home, shocked to see his mother crying since her husband has divorced her. He remains by her side to comfort and support her. Concurrently, Elizabeth is unable to keep the appointment with John as they had planned because she must stay home to take care of her little sister. Elizabeth phones John and tells him about her father Frank's directive for her to stay at home and asks him to come over. John doesn't mind and asks his friends to bring him over to her house. The friends, however, insist on Elizabeth joining them out rather than staying at home. Elizabeth decides to stay home with her sister and go out with John and his friends and have fun all together. John drops Elizabeth off at home, but Elizabeth asks him to hang around by the pool for a while, and John seems to comply. John is surprised to see Frank and tries to hide underwater so that Frank won't see him. Later on, he emerges from the water, greets Elizabeth, and leaves. The next day, John gets dressed in good clothes and an expensive watch, which his friend Slow had left with him. John goes to a party and encounters Elizabeth, and the two are matched and have a good time. After the party, John tries to drive Elizabeth home, but is ambushed by a group of thieves who intend to steal their riches. John does not wish to give away Slow's expensive watch. The thieves attack Elizabeth and threaten to kill her, and John gives up the watch without complaint. Elizabeth is angry at this and does not wish to speak to him. Frank comes to take his daughter home and instructs John to stay away from his daughter. At home, Frank tells Elizabeth to have nothing to do with John again. But Elizabeth refuses, claiming anger at John is not the same as never speaking to him again. His father tells her that John is a poor man who has lived all his life in slums and that their attack was not by accident. Days pass, and John does not see Elizabeth visit the university anymore, for he was holding out to apologize to her. He goes to see her at home. It seems Elizabeth allows John to enter without informing her father. John apologizes to Elizabeth for everything that he did and confesses his love for Elizabeth, saying he cannot live without her. Elizabeth confesses her love for John too, and they become intimate, beginning to date. Days pass, and John and Elizabeth are happy until Slow contacts John and asks him to return the expensive watch that he had given him. John goes to visit Slow and confesses everything that had happened, telling him that the watch was stolen. Slow becomes angry and tells John that the watch was very expensive and that he had intended to sell it so that he might pay debts to gangsters who might kill him. John proposes that they have these expensive equipment stolen from the university studio and then resell them to give the proceeds to the criminals. They steal. The next morning, Elizabeth receives a strange message from John that he does not deserve to be with her because she is worthy of someone better. Elizabeth is confused and doesn't understand what's happening. She discovers that some recording devices were stolen from the university and the robbers entered through a hidden ceiling door known only to John and a small group of close friends. Elizabeth tries to tell herself it's coincidental. Elizabeth goes back to her house and finds that her father has recorded a video taken by the security cameras. The video is of John and his gang breaking into the house on the same day it had been broken into. Frank did not inform the police about John because he had saved his daughter's life. Elizabeth reflects on all that had occurred and finds that John was a burglar, and she is extremely saddened by this fact, and she becomes depressed once again. Several days later, Slow tries to console John because he is having a rough time dealing with all that had happened and his separation from Elizabeth. Slow also surprisingly fights with a criminal in the street regarding debts, but the criminal shoots Slow and kills him before John, who passes out, and decides to take revenge for his friend's death with Frank's gun. But John's third friend calls Elizabeth in an attempt to assist and prevent John from destroying his life. Elizabeth goes to where John has gone and finds herself astonished by the presence of the police. She is told that John had gone to kill the murderer, but changed his mind and called the police to confess all this. The police apprehend the murderer who had slain Slow, as well as take into custody John because of the gun he carried on him. Elisabeth gets on a motorbike and stands in front of the police vehicle, but the officers try to push her out in vain. They therefore decide to arrest her alongside John. Elisabeth's plan is to stay imprisoned with John so that her father, Frank, will use his power and means to get them released and free John's name from all suspicion so that she may stay with him for the rest of their lives.